Okay.
Okay, we are live. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to go first in my presentation. I sent you guys the video of what I was going to talk about. And so I know it was horrible. I'm sorry. I'm just like laughing. I decided to do a video because it was just I did not feel like writing an essay. But anyway, it was a good video. I'm kind of going to be saying the same things that I said in the video, but just presenting it to you. See, maybe you could ask questions or something. I don't know. Anyway, you saw the video, so okay. So, um, I first so like what like this so for what I learned throughout the course of the year is the first one was mainly UDL in general, like the broad topic of UDL and how it's multiple means of engagement, representation, and action in a classroom. And why is it important? Because it provides automatic ways to differentiate instruction and provide the needs for all students. So UDL is a great way to like have a lesson plan and be like, okay, I can give this student this student that, because all students learn differently, and that's what I want to do in a future classroom. For that is I want to build UDL lesson plans that have engagement, representation, and actions for that. I also like the use of progress monitoring skills and formative assessment in the classroom. So kind of like, where you go and you kind of check up on a student, just give an assignment and then go sit down, at your desk and not do anything. So you kind of walk around and you kind of ask questions and you kind of figure out who is going to need more help after this lesson. And I feel like you can really stop a problem like where it's at and kind of remediate before it gets worse and you're 3 weeks in and you're like, oh, they didn't know this, but now they're 3 weeks behind because they didn't know it. So I think from an assessment, they can really get that, and that's what I'd want to do. Um, I really liked the tools to enhance UDL, such as like AimsWeb and stuff like that. When we did that huge project, I mean not huge project, but where we did that assignment where we had to look at all the different programs. You guys remember? Yeah. Like AimsWeb and like the math board game thing. I want to use that in my classroom because I feel like it's another great way to utilize a different kind of instruction. So I learned that. Definitely the flipped classroom, as you guys are probably going to talk about, because this was such a big thing because I never thought of it. I never really thought of it like that when I was in school, how it, provided opportunities for learning outside of the classroom and gave them more practice time, which if they needed more help, I feel like that'd be a good way for them to go home and be like, okay, I can look this up. Like when I was in school and you didn't understand a math concept, you could just go online and look it up now. It wouldn't just be like, oh, I have to wait till the next day and not finish my homework and get graded down or something like that. So it's a really good way to immerse it. So I'd want to always build lesson plans that involve having a flipped classroom. That's what I'd want to do. I really like the International Society for Technology and Education. Like they kind of give strategies to utilize technology in the classroom and engage all students in it. And it kind of created like this whole like vocabulary of technology is not bad in education. Like we should utilize it because it's a tool that we need, and like create a discussion board for students and parents to be to be posted online. That way, emails don't get lost in the void and stuff like that. So that's what I'd want to do. And then I mentioned the difference between a 504 and an IEP because I kind of knew the difference, but they were kind of jumbled. But now, because of this class, I have a good line between it. Um, I definitely liked the types of assistive technology and kind of how simple they were. Like, well, some of them were. I always thought that they were just really complicated, but I learned that they can be as simple as a pencil grip and all that. So that was nice, and I definitely want to utilize assistive technology in my classroom, even if it's just really simple. I feel like it can make such a huge difference. The ADA regulations, I kind of remember them. I just know the basics kind of like buildings have to promote to code, and I would want to know them so that I can utilize them in my future classroom, even though the school should have them. But just in case they don't, I would be aware of that and give students, who are in a wheelchair, who are deaf, who are blind, have those accommodations in the classroom because of ADA regulations. And then kind of lastly was just kind of those formatted lesson plans that we just did, where like it mapped out all the UDL strategies. I would definitely utilize those because I feel like in the beginning it was hard to write a UDL lesson plan with just like the three things. But I feel like with this, I wish we did this first where it was formatted and it kind of guided us through all the UDL principles. Like, do you have formative assessment? Do you have summative assessment? Are you engaging them here? Include something here. It was just more explicit with it. And I feel like it was a lot easier to write UDL lesson plans with it than just the whole I do, we do, you do thing. So, yeah, so that's kind of what I learned and kind of how I want to utilize these strategies in my future classroom and also why they're important. Because I learned a lot and it's going to be a lot to take in, but I'm just going to remember this class and use it in the future.
Good job. I think very well.
Thank you.
Good brief overview. Not
Yeah,
too
presentation. I think the video was longer. I wasn't going to torture you again.
it was good.
Just summarized. Yeah.
Good job.
Anyway, so I guess yeah, that's it. Maya, you're next. Your PowerPoint was very interesting, and I liked it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was just to give you like a brief little overview of what I would be like talking about, or what I talked about more in the
Yeah.
little recordings.
Yeah, I was hoping
on each slide.
You would summarize. I mean, you would go over some things more with
your. Thanks for a heads up, though.
Yeah.
I'll just briefly summarize again what my PowerPoint was on, I guess. So the first kind of thing that I took away from this class was lesson planning and just like how to go about them. This was the first time I had ever really like tried or like even like attempted to write a lesson plan. I had like worked with like prior with someone like, but she did most of the designing of it, and she would just kind of like inform me on what was going on, but I hadn't really like created one myself. And it takes like a lot of time. I felt like to like create a solid lesson plan and to take into account the like how you write your instructions and making sure that they're clear and understandable, so that if someone else were to look at it, they could easily mimic what you wanted to have done in your classroom. I think also this goes, or with this, you have to make sure that also the instructions include like modifications or like just like different ways of helping those with learning disabilities or special needs, making sure that you have tools or items that will help them when in your classroom so they can better understand the material and not fall behind in your classroom. So, so why this is important? I explained that again, like this was my first time, and it just to give me the exposure of something that I would be doing regularly in the future, I thought was great. And then having to actually present it, I thought was beneficial to get you guys' like feedback on what I did well and what I can improve upon. This like having to create these lesson plans also made me like stop and think about like what factors I need to consider when writing it, and to make sure that I am meeting like all of the like the standards and like what they should be learning in that grade, but also like how to um, accommodate and make sure that students get the support that they need as well. So for the next thing that I talked about was the flipped classroom, and this was something that I had never heard of before or never thought of even. So I think this has a lot of good benefits to having like helping students in the classroom, and just the idea of like them having more support and time to ask those questions and work with the teacher, I think can be very beneficial for students, because sometimes they go home and they don't understand what they're doing or what they're supposed to be doing. So then after a little bit of time they struggle and then just give up and then don't really attempt to further that, and then well, they have to like wait for the next day or whatever. But if they have that flipped classroom, they can go right there to the teacher and ask for help then. Also, I think this is a more interactive and involved way of learning for students rather than just like sitting down and listening to a lecture. This gives them more time to work through the things, to work through the material, and get help from their peers as well as their teacher. So I think I would like try this out in my own classroom because of these benefits that it has. And I know it's not for all classrooms because there could be like challenges to this. Like for example, if the teacher has students watch like the instructional portion at home on like their computer or whatever, not all students have technology at home. So also thinking about how we can like overcome that barrier. So whether if it's the teacher prints out the slides for the student or has them sets aside time during the day for them to work on it at school and for them to be able to do that as well and not be limited due to the lack of computers in their household. The last thing I talked about was more about like the disabilities and just going more in depth in some of them because there were a few that I didn't really know much about. Although I've heard of them, I didn't really like understand what accommodations or like modifications were made for students with those disabilities. Nor did I understand nor did I know like how common some of these things were. I also mentioned briefly like again the IEPs and 504 plans and just like how I have a better understanding of them now after this class and like what similarities and differences are between the two. And I feel like this is extremely important to know this information, especially with working with those with disabilities, to be able to best help the students and support them while they're in the classroom. Even if you don't know much about them, I think even just understanding a little bit could be beneficial in how they get their support. And also another thing that I thought about was that after like learning more about them, this could possibly like help for other people to know like this can possibly help like reduce like the misconceptions and stereotypes and like those labels as what am I trying to say? And the stereotypes of like, oh, those with disabilities, oh, can't do this or that or the other. So yeah, that's really what I talked about.
Sounds like you learned a lot.
Sounds like we're all going to be talking about the same things.
Yeah,
Ideas from us now. You're welcome.
not a good delivery, but
yeah, next week, that'll be fun. Dead week.
Yeah, not really dead week for me. So.
But I don't really have a week though, so I guess next week's like my finals week.
Well, yeah. That's nice.
I know, lucky me. Like everything I have is due like on the 1st of May. like
Yeah.
no tests, so that's nice. So, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. But yeah, next Thursday, I guess.
Yeah, as of now.
Yeah,
It's
you guys have time to work on this. And,
yeah.
Actually, I can't do next Thursday.
Okay.
oh. Did
Can you do
probably
Tuesday?
Tuesday?
As of now, I should be able to do Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you do it like Monday, you probably will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Let's
don't think
plan for Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday works.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Maya, can you ow. Sorry, Maya, can you text me the link? Just a group chat to the YouTube to this video.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sure.
that
Yeah, I'll
submit it.
send it to you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good because I'm probably just gonna submit it tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right,
good.
good job, guys. Super proud of you. Way to be the first two.
First, woo. Yeah, you're welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Yeah, I
I
appreciate it.
relieved because that means I just got it out of the way. I didn't have to worry about it next week. Because now I have this big paper. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was good. It worked out. But anyway,
Perfect.
see you guys next Tuesday.
All right.
Bye. Good luck.
Bye.